Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. On this auspicious occasion, wish you all a happy and a prosperous Ganesha Chaturthi. Tomorrow being 23rd, we would not be having the Hindu analysis. That is because the Hindu would not be publishing its newspaper. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article is about fire at Sri Shailam hydroelectricity project. A major fire broke out, resulting in a blast at Sri Shailam hydroelectric plant in Telangana. So where is this located? So the Sri Shailam left bank power station is located in the state of Telangana across the border of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Kindly remember, this is a state-run hydel station and this is constructed on the Krishna River. What is the cause of this fire accident? Initial assessments reveal that this is because of the short circuit in the electric panels. This is what the preliminary assessment says, but once we have a clear-cut evidence as reported by the state government, we will take up the root cause of this issue once again. What should be the immediate action plan? Whenever there is a fire accident in any of the power stations, what should be the immediate action taken by the personnel in and around that region? First, what they have to do is to ring the siren. Why? Because the people would be alerted because of the siren alert. The minute they are alerted, they would be able to take all the measures so that they can turn off the fires, and at the same time they would be able to bring the firefighting cylinders and the fire buckets immediately to turn off the fire in this region and in this place. Therefore, the importance of siren is to minimize the economic losses as well as loss of human lives. Then after this is done, where alert has been sent to all the personnel in this region, we can immediately call up the fire brigade so that they would come over and immediately turn off all the fires that is present in this region. These are some of the immediate action plans that one may have to take when it comes to the fire accident. But what about the long-term strategies? What about the measures that people will have to take for preventing such a disaster from striking a hydroelectric power project? This includes periodically checking, testing and maintenance of all the equipment. Let's say we have the fire alarms or the extinguishing systems. These will have to be periodically checked to ensure that they are in a healthy condition. When a fire accident happens in a region, people should also be aware what are the measures that they have to take immediately. So this will require first aid exercise, and this will also require mock fire extinguishing exercise as well. So the people will have to be trained with respect to the first aid exercise and the mock fire extinguishing exercise. To put this all into practice, what we require is safety audit on a periodic basis at least every year or at least 6 months to ensure that these are in a healthy condition. So safety audit becomes a very important factor. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about Bihar elections. The Bihar government is all set to complete its tenure in the November 2020. This means that elections will have to take place in the state of Bihar amidst the COVID-19 crisis. The Election Commission has already made sure that it has conducted elections to the Rajya Sabha and to the legislative councils as well. So they are prepared to conduct the elections in the state of Bihar, for which they have already spoken to the political parties, they have already spoken to the elected representatives and the election commissioners in other states of India as well. They have taken their input, they have taken their viewpoints, and now they have given guidelines as to how elections will have to be conducted in the state of Bihar. Why does this become important? That is because Bihar would be the first state in India to go to polls amidst the COVID-19 crisis. So what are the guidelines issued by the Election Commission is what this article all about. Now let's look at the guidelines. After considering suggestions from multiple political parties and chief electoral officers of multiple states, they have come to a conclusion that there can be only 5 people who can go on a campaign on a door-to-door basis when they are physically going for the campaign. Anything more than that will be a violation of the guideline. The Election Commission has restricted a candidate's convoy for roadshows to about 5 vehicles. Anything in excess of 5 vehicles will be a violation of this election commission guidelines. But kindly remember, there can be vehicles which can also be included in the convoy, which is only for the security purposes. In case it is not for security, it is restricted only to 5 vehicles. As the election process is initiated, what we will have is people coming up to the polling booth and casting their votes for their candidates. This will also mean, let's say there are asymptomatic people can also transmit the virus as well. Why? Because they are signing the register and at the same time they are also pressing the EVM buttons as well. In order to prevent the transmission of the virus, the Election Commission of India has said that hand gloves will be provided to these people. Why? Because this will ultimately curb the menace of transmission of the virus. So the hand gloves will be provided to all those people while they would be signing the registry and pressing the EVM button. Along with gloves, all these people coming up to the polling stations will have to wear the mask compulsorily. Only to establish their identity, they may have to open the mask to show their identity, and after that they have to wear the mask once again. And in a polling station, maximum 1000 voters can vote at a polling station, which was earlier at about 1500 voters. This is another change made by the Election Commission of India. As an update, what we will also have is the introduction of postal ballot for all those suffering from COVID-19. Let's say there are people who are suffering from COVID-19. They are not supposed to come and vote in the elections. For such people who have the symptoms and for such people who are quarantined in hospitals, there is introduction of the postal ballot as well. The facility is also being provided to all those people who are above 65 years of age as well. Currently, this is only for those type of people who have disabilities and those aged above 85. But this new introduction will be for those people who are above 65 years of age. And what is so unique about this Bihar elections is that for the very first time, political parties fielding candidates with criminal records will also have to provide the justification as to why they have fielded such a candidate. The Supreme Court in February had come out with a landmark judgment. It had directed that all political parties fielding candidates with criminal records must make public why they have been fielded. What are the reasons why they did not find an alternative person, instead have fielded this person with a criminal record. It can be an heinous crime, it can be an attempt to murder, or any charges where criminal records have been present on that person. So the political parties will have to publish on their website or on the local newspapers or on the national newspapers as to why they have given ticket to this person who has a criminal history behind him. Bihar will be the first state to implement this Supreme Court order, that which was published in the month of February. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says differential impact of COVID-19 and the lockdown. We have one of the international authors called as the Walter Schiedel. He has written a book called as The Great Leveler. This book is all about tracing the history of inequality in the world. So this will identify what are the causes of inequality, and this book is all about tracing the historical perspective as to why inequality is present in the society. According to the author, there are 4 major catastrophes. What are these? It includes pandemic, war, revolution and state collapse. Whenever any of these catastrophic events occur in the global environment, this has reduced inequality and has brought about equality, says the author. This is the perspective of the international author, that is Walter Schiedel. So what are the pandemics? He gives the example of Spanish flu, HIV/AIDS, SARS, so on and so forth. Or it can be a war in the form of First World War or the Second World War, or it can be the revolution as well. The revolution which happened in Arab, which is called as the Arab Spring. Then we can have the Russian Revolution, or we can even think of the French Revolution as well. Or when it is a state collapse in the form of disintegration or balkanization of the erstwhile Soviet Union. In all these cases, what the author says is there was prevalent of inequality in the society. But when the pandemic struck, when the war struck, when the revolution was present, or there was a state collapse, there was decrease of of inequality and there was increase of equality. Why? That is because there was excess mortality in that particular society, and at the same time the price of the labor started increasing. Whether this will hold good to the COVID-19 or not can only be seen after COVID-19 has come to an end, says the author of the Hindu editorial. The authors of the article also bring in another perspective as well. According to them, previously there have been some evidences which went on to prove that COVID-19 has been a leveler. Why? That is because of the established credential. Irrespective of the person's status, whether it is rich or poor, the people are getting impacted. Irrespective of which race they belong to, they are getting impacted. Irrespective of which country they belong to, they are getting impacted. Irrespective of which ethnicity they belong to, they are getting impacted. So what the author says, that status is not coming into picture as per the evidence that which has been proved in the number of cases. And at the same time, the author also says that when it comes to the economic issues, it is the rich who are also suffering, the poor are also suffering, the middle class are also suffering. These have been the evidential facts as given previously. But the author says this is wrong. It is the poor who are most impacted according to the author. Why does the author says? Is because of the evidence that she brings into perspective. The author says that on the basis of rich and poor, it is the poor who are suffering. When it comes to the rich, what we have is the celebrities, or we can also call the politicians, falling under the bracket of the rich. Why? Because let's say there is a test that has to be conducted. Within hours, within days, these people get all their results. Hospitals for them are immediately provided and they are also discharged within few days as well. That is not the case with the poor. He has to walk a long way, look for the beds, ambulance are not provided on time, and even if the ambulance is provided, it has to run all the way to check for the availability of the beds. In case the poor happen to take the test results with respect to the COVID-19, the swiftness that which is provided to the rich people is not provided to the poor people. And at the same time, let's also bring into perspective the education as well. The less educated have no tenure, they have no job security, they have no social security as well. But when it comes to those people who have 12 years and more of education, those people are provided with work from home and they also have the social security. So who is getting impacted here? The poor is getting impacted. It is the less educated who is getting impacted because of the COVID-19, says the authors of this article. Then she also brings into another perspective of race and ethnicity. She takes into consideration the United Kingdom as well as the countries of United States of America. In United Kingdom, what we have is the consideration of the BAME community. So what is this BAME community? This includes the black community, the Asian community, as well as other minority ethnic groups as well. When you compare the whites and the non-whites in United Kingdom, it is the non-whites who are suffering with respect to COVID-19. Why? That is because of the poor living conditions. That is because of less access to the economic resources. So this is happening with the BAME community in United Kingdom, says the author. And at the same time, when you consider the United States of America, it is the African blacks who have been impacted, says the author. And when it comes to India, caste becomes a major consideration. On the basis of caste, this can be segmented into three parts. One is on the basis of employment, the other is education to the children, and third is about the technology. Keeping caste as the benchmark, we have to focus on employment as well. The number of people who have lost their jobs when it comes to the SC/ST community is far greater than the upper caste, says the author of this article. Then when it comes to educating the children, it is the women who are living in the houses who educate the children because of the COVID-19. COVID-19 issues means that children are not able to go to the schools, and as a result, women in the houses educate their children. But when it comes to the education, the upper caste women are more educated than women from the SC/ST community. So they would be able to give more education to the children, is another consideration given by the authors of this article. The third is about technology. When you consider the SC/ST community or those people in the tribals in specific, they do not have access to the internet, and as a result, the children suffer holistically as well. Keeping all these considerations of status, that is rich and poor, education, race and ethnicity, and caste, the authors of the article go on to say that the already pre-existing divide, which had already created inequality, has exacerbated in the COVID-19 and it has not reduced the inequality, says the author. The only thing that we have to wait and watch is whether this particular analogy of the author, that is Walter Shelter, is right or wrong. But as per the authors of this article, they say that it might not work in India and in the world because the inequality has been exacerbated because of COVID-19. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about contempt issue. For the last 3 to 4 days, we have been discussing about contempt issue. But one of the landmark judgments given by the Supreme Court with reference to contempt is S. Mulgonka versus Unknown in the year 1978. What was this about? This was a landmark ruling on the subject of contempt. There is something called as the habeas corpus case. This was a case that was filed during the emergency period. A simple question was asked to the Supreme Court. What was the question? During emergency, can Article 21 be suspended or not? Does the executive have all the powers to strip away, snatch away the life of a person, and will Article 21 be suspended during the times of emergency? This was a simple question asked in the habeas corpus case during emergency. Ideally, Article 21 is very important and this should have been upheld. But what does the Supreme Court say? That Article 21 can be taken away in case there is the presence of emergency. This happens to be one of the Supreme Court's darkest hour as it failed to deliver justice to the normal people. This is the background to the Mulgovankar case. What exactly happens in this particular case of Mulgovankar? There was one of the articles that was written on the Indian Express. This article was having a critical analysis of the habeas corpus case. It had criticized the moves of the Supreme Court, and as a result, there was one of the Supreme Court registrar who had written to the Indian Express to seek an apology and also withdraw this article that was written on the Indian Express. But the editor of this particular newspaper, Mulgovankar, was not ready to apologize. Instead, all those arguments which he had not put up in his earlier articles were also published. And now what happens? The Chief Justice of India back then, that is Beg, who looks into this particular article published by Mulgovankar, issues a contempt petition. Why? Because the Supreme Court registrar had asked this particular newspaper to withdraw the article, but Beg says that this was not withdrawn, but instead more articles were published. As a result, contempt proceedings were initiated. This goes to a 3-judge bench. This included 3 important judges. One is Justice Kailasam, the other is Krishna Iyer, and third happens to be Chief Justice M.H. Beg. The court looks into it and they had to give a simple judgment whether contempt proceedings has to be initiated against the Indian Express editor or not. The judgment was given in the ratio of 2:1. The majority said that contempt proceedings should not be initiated, and the minority judgment, that is represented by Chief Justice of India back then, M.H. Beg, said that contempt proceedings has to be initiated. Ultimately, since it was a majority of 2:1, contempt proceedings were not proven and ultimately guilty was not proved with respect to Mulgovankar. So what is that we have to understand? With this judgment, what we have is the established principles of what is called as Mulgovankar principles. What is this Mulgovankar principles? This was the judgment authored by Krishna Iyer. He goes on to say very beautifully that in case there is a person who happens to attack, jeopardize justice by attacking the judges, or this will obstruct the judicial process, or this will ensure that justice is not delivered to the victim, that is when contempt proceedings has to be created or it has to be initiated. If there is no obstruction of the justice, then these individuals are like dogs who may bark, the caravan will pass on, says Justice Krishna Iyer. So what he basically believes in harmonizing free speech and at the same time it also wants to make sure that there is no obstruction when it comes to the conduction of activities of the judiciary. So he gives importance to the free criticism as well as the curial process of the judiciary. He also said the judiciary will have to have a vigilant eyes and should respect free speech, and at the same time it should not obstruct the proceedings of the judiciary. It was what was laid out in Mulgoanka versus Unknown in the year 1978. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about China-Pak dialogue. Foreign ministers of China and Pakistan held their second annual strategic dialogue, during which they discussed four important issues. One was about their overall bilateral issue. The second was about the Kashmir issue. The third was about the CPEC project, and fourth was about the Afghan security issue. What was the joint statement issued at the end of the meeting with respect to the Union Territory of Kashmir? According to China, Kashmir issue has been a major dispute between India and Pakistan. This is because of the colonial powers who have not been able to solve this particular issue at the time of independence. So this dispute has been persisting since independence. So going forward, in case this issue has to be solved, this has to be on the basis of UN Charter. It has to be based on the Security Council resolutions and also on the established principles of bilateral agreements. It has supported Pakistan's claim over Kashmir, and it has also said any unilateral actions that complicate the situation should not be taken by any country in a reference to India. India previously has been opposing any stand taken by China with respect to the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. India has been maintaining that China has no locus standi when it comes to commenting on Jammu and Kashmir. It has previously told China that the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir has always been, will always be an integral part of India. So India has previously commented that China has no locus standi with respect to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And with respect to CPEC, both Pakistan and China were happy with the move of CPEC. Why? Because this would create economic opportunities and also job opportunities to the people of Pakistan. But India has repeatedly said that this is violating the territorial integrity of India. So kindly remember, this was the response given by India in the past, but we will have an elaborate analysis once again when India gives the response to this statement made under the second annual strategic dialogue. Now let's look into some of the preliminary practice questions. Which of the following statements is or correct with respect to the shell companies? These companies have no significant operational assets, they have no business activity of its own, no physical existence at the given address. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Kindly remember, there is no clear-cut definition of shell companies in India. But when it comes to the actual analogy of what is this shell company, the SEBI has suggested that any entity having no significant operational assets, business activities of its own, or acting in a pass-through capacity will become a shell company. So what is this pass-through company? Basically, all these companies exist only on the paper, but they have no physical presence, which means these are the companies which are usually incorporating tax evasion techniques, money laundering tools, binami transaction, conversion of black money into white money, round tripping, and other associated effects with respect to the tax evasion. So such companies which do not have the actual presence but conduct all these activities are called as the shell companies. The other parameters with respect to the shell company also includes multiple companies with the same address, and at the same time there is no physical presence of that company at the given address. Why is the shell company a major cause of concern? That is because they are evading the taxes, and at the same time they can also aid money laundering for terrorist activities as well. That is the prime reason these shell companies are always watched by the government of India. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. With reference to Indian Gaur, which of the following statements is or correct? It is the largest and tallest in the family of wild cattle. Its IUCN status is endangered. endangered? It is the state animal of Goa. The answer to this is 1 and 3 only. Why? Because the IUCN status is not endangered, instead it is vulnerable. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. They are usually seen in southwestern India, central India, as well as in northeastern India. What have been the threats for the Indian bison or the gore? There are three important threats when it comes to their living. One is habitat destruction, second is poaching, and third is diseases such as foot and mouth, Rindex pest, as well as anthrax. What is to do with the habitat destruction? Most of these animals live in the grasslands. Why? Because they feed on the grass. Because these grasslands are destroyed by the human beings for their own personal economic activity, habitat destruction has become a major threat. And when it comes to poaching, these animals are hunted for their meat. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following have received GI tag? Balrampur saris, Habaspuri handloom, and Gadwal sari. The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. So kindly remember, this Balrampur saris is from the state of Kerala, Habaspuri handloom is from the state of Odisha, and Gadwal sari is from the state of Telangana, and all the three of the handlooms have got the GI tag. So the answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Now let's look into the next practice question. Gormura National Park is in which state? The answer to this is West Bengal. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. So kindly remember, this is located in the state of West Bengal, and Gormura lies on the western bank of the Murti River in the floodplains of Murti River, and there is another river, Jaldaka River, which also flows through this national park. Now let's look into the next practice question. With reference to Buddhist history, tradition and culture in India, consider the following pairs. Tobo Monastery and Temple Complex, is it in Spit Valley? Yes, the answer is right. Lohoto Lakong Temple Nako, is it in Zaskar Valley? This is wrong. Why? Because this is in Himachal Pradesh. So the second option is wrong. Aichi Temple Complex, this is in Ladakh. Yes, this is also right. So which of the following pairs are correctly matched? It is 1 and 3 only. Now let's look into the mains practice question. COVID-19 induced economic distress is further exasperating the pre-existing structures of disadvantage based on social identity. Analyze. What was held in S. Mulgankar case? In this context, is there a special responsibility on the higher judiciary to be vigilant and to protect free speech? Please write all your answers on the comment section, peer review, and also come up with constructive criticism. This is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.